On the first half of our agenda, we're going to divide it between the ward and mayoral candidates with predetermined questions to each of our candidates, and they'll have a preset time to answer these, and they've been provided with this information in advance. Then we're going to have a quick fire response, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. The final hour is going to be the town hall format, where we're hoping that you have questions based on what you've heard or based on your issues during the last 4 years of council. And as Jane said, we provided cards. Joan Duncan and John McDowell are at a table towards the back of the room, and they'll be able to receive your cards and bring them up to me to be read. When you prepare those questions, you may direct them to either the 3 mayoral candidates, the 4 ward candidates, or a single person if it's a single question. And to the candidates, I will say that your answers may be as short as you wish. Brevity in political debate is always appreciated, but no longer than the time allotted in the agenda. Our timer will let you know by dinging his bell when you have 20 seconds left. If you go over long, you will be interrupted. And we will go on to the next question. Without further ado, I will now invite our North Crosby Ward 4 candidates to give their opening remarks, beginning with Bob Lavoie. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, everyone. Start the clock again, please. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. And I'm just going to tell you about what I want to do for you in the next 4 years to address the challenges that this municipality is and will continue to be facing. If I'm re-elected, I will work to create a joint water quality board with the Village of Westport and both the Upper Rideau Lakes and the Big Rideau Lake Association. The board would support the work of the lake associations, comment on future plans to protect lake water quality, and share information with the public and with councils. I'm also going to promote the creation of a municipal debt policy that balances our borrowing with the pace of our capital improvement program, and will call for a cap on borrowing to less than what we repay annually. So there's always something going down on the principal. I'll request a review of the township bylaws to make sure that they're current, clear, and doing what they should. And along with that, I'll work to make sure that our key planning and zoning documents are user-friendly and that working with the township is the same. And finally, I'll pursue services that will keep our residents safe, healthy, and mobile, such as retirement homes and solutions to the rural transportation problems that affect us, our friends, and our families. The increased responsibilities that municipalities face and their impact on our lives is only going to get bigger. And as your continued voice for action on council, I will remember that there's only one taxpayer and that I am there to represent you. True openness, transparency, and communication are the key to building the community that we all want to live in. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Did you pass it to Debbie Hutchings?
Good morning. My name is Debbie Hutchings. I'm a farmer, entrepreneur, businesswoman, visionary, and inventor. 5th generation, born and raised in the ward of North Crosby. I've felt called all my life to run for council, and this is my first time. I love the land and the people. I feel, as a resident myself, that our voices must be heard, and that we all must have a chance to not only be heard, but be listened to. I want to serve, listen, represent, and be a part of Rideau Lake's future. We live and have the most beautiful place in the world. There's nowhere like it. Being new to this platform, I don't know a lot about building codes, new OPP structure revamping, etc., but I'm willing to learn. I do not know some of these decisions and rulings. I do know that some of these decisions and rulings are out of Rideau Lake's hands, and that it is legislature, higher government that's been passed down. But if we could somehow team up with other townships in Ontario, maybe, just maybe as a larger group, we could change the hand of the powers that be. My passion is the land, water and environment, small business, and tourism. The current nitrate problem in the rural Rideau Lake affects us all. It's not just one community's problem anymore. Now it's ours too. And if worked on as a team, we will find a solution. I've seen our township grow and appreciate where it's at, but it has greater potential and move forward with the right leaders. I would like to vote the voters of the Township of Rideau Lakes to consider the following. Vote for the candidates who have true conviction, not their own agenda, who display common sense and vision, are humble, who will listen to you, and spend their time finding solutions instead of making a lot of noise and empty promises. We will have to acknowledge the past to build a better future. I command that they appreciate the counselors of the past and the present who have brought us to this point in time. We need team players.
Good morning, everyone. I don't need to give an introduction to too many people, but for the ones that doesn't know me, this is Ron Pollard. And first of all, I want to say thanks to Erla for hosting this meeting this morning. I know for everyone, it's a very, very much family-oriented weekend, and it gives us a great opportunity to meet one another as well as exchange information. A little bit about myself. I'm a lifelong resident, married for almost 48 years, have 3 daughters as well as 3 grandsons. I farmed all my life, dairy and beef, and now just beef, as well as we run Windwell cottages, which taught me on tight budgeting and borrowing when it made sense. I have always had a keen interest in our community, as I believe we live in the best place possible, and let's keep it that way. I enjoy people in general. I have always enjoyed serving my community for about 30 years in most capacities. With your support and voting, I will enjoy serving to the best of my ability for another term. Thank you very much.
Morning, everyone. As president of my high school, I learned early in life that getting involved was important to help shape the world around you. With the full support of my wife Jill, I've always found ways to contribute to the community we lived in and raised our 2 children. And we've lived in a number of cities across the country. As an example, in the 80s, we bought an old house in the historic Ottawa neighborhood known as Britannia Village. It was a favorite summer holiday place along the Ottawa River for the people of Ottawa. Soon after moving in, we discovered that the city had plans to construct a bridge from Quebec, using our narrow road as the access road. This meant the street would be widened and our old house was in the way. We wondered, no wonder we got the house for such a good price. Most people would have just given up and moved, and the future would have unfolded as the city wanted. But instead, I decided to create a community group to challenge the construction of the bridge from Quebec to Ottawa. First, we had to get all the neighbors on board, and many of them were very negative and saying nothing could be done. It took 10 years of fundraising, working, fighting City Hall. But today, all of you can see the positive results. We stopped the bridge. The federal government actually rebuilt the Champlain Bridge on Island Park Drive to cover the traffic problem. The city revitalized Britannia Park, dredging the bay, creating a sandy beach, and installing circulating pumps to ensure a safe swimming area. A replica of the original train station was built. The sensitive mud lake area is now open to the public. And finally, the village has house prices that are almost at the top of Ottawa's list.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for those opening remarks. We're going to begin today's debate by asking each of our ward councillors or candidates for council a question. Response time is 1.5 minutes for the first answer and 1 minute for each subsequent candidate on that answer. And by staggering the beginning order, we're going to start with Debbie Hutchings. I will read her question, which she has in front of her. Now, they only got these questions this morning, so they have not had time to prepare a written answer. Debbie, environmental stewardship has been identified as an important objective of your campaign. What do you see as the environmental priorities of the township, and what steps would you take as a member of council to address them?
Do you have permission? It's a public meeting.
The environment, it is a very big concern of mine. I raise and sell honeybees. I sell them across Canada. I've been affected very much by the environment and what's going on with the honeybees right now. And I have taken steps, federal level and stuff, and belong to groups who are lobbying for better environment for bees, which also means a better environment for us. As with Rideau Lakes, I want to engage the public, the taxpayer, in asking me questions, and then through Facebook or some other way of connecting with me. Communication to me is the biggest thing, and if you can communicate your problems to me, I will do my very best. I can't promise anything, but I will do my very best to address and come to a conclusion, a solution, using you guys as part of the solution with your ideas, because everybody's ideas is good on this, not just me sitting or finding out and telling you and dictating to you. You are part of the solution. And so,
20 seconds.
oh, okay. Yes, and so through just contact, listening is a very big thing that we get listened to. And oh dear. I think, well anyways, you know that like it is pulling together is teamwork with Westport and whatever for the best of the lake and the environment.
Thank you for bringing that back. I'm taking the mic for a second. We're going to pass that same question on to Ron, but we wanted to advise, particularly the candidates that are answering these questions, that we are being filmed for YouTube. We've just become aware of that and wanted you to know. So thank you very much. Ron, this is the same question.
Same question.
Same question.
Thank you very much, Wendy. Yes, as far as to encourage new development, if you were elected, would you support the existing policies and lots that I set back in front of you? Yes, I would. I think we've got something very good in place that protects our lakes, our waterfront properties, what have you, for our children and our grandchildren. And if we don't, we only get the one kick at the cat to save our lakes. We all know in this world of ours, we have one of the most prestige areas possible. And I think we've worked very hard. We work with the ministry. We have to abide by the Ontario Planning Act. We can be more stringent than the Ontario Planning Act, but we cannot be less. Thank you.
Don took this same question.
Oh, I have the same one too. Okay, well,
Everybody answers every question.
okay, cool, sorry about that. Environmental stewardship, I mean, to me, we're talking about sustainable development. And water quality has got to be the #1 priority in the Rideau Lakes Township. I have got some property on Wolf Lake, and I purchased that property because people told me it was one of the cleanest lakes around. Whatever it needs to be done to develop the potential of the township has to totally respect and preserve the environment that we only have one environment. We need to take the time to make sure that we pass it on to future generations in the same or better condition than we have received it. Thank you.
I think there's been a lot said about the environmental issues and how we should approach them, and I can only build on what's already been said. Our lakes are important for our economy, for tourism, recreation, and everything else. And I think it's very important that we're all cognizant of that, and that we, while respecting some of our neighbors' rights to enjoy themselves and manicure their properties, we do have to try and convince them to join the fight against polluting our lakes. It's also important that on the environmental side, we pay close attention to our landfills and to any other wells in the area, septic systems, to keep our land as pristine as we can for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate. Our second question is directed to Ron Pollard. The Ministry of the Environment is charged with responsibility for ensuring that the Westport sewage treatment system is operating properly. What steps can our council take to have the system repaired or replaced to ensure that there is no more dumping from sewage lagoons into Upper Rideau Lake?
Once again, thank you, Wendy. First and foremost is open dialogue with our neighbors, the village of Westport. We all know, whether it's private or public, you move mountains by working together. You move nothing by working against one another. I would see as I say, with open dialogue, and that being with the Minister of Environment, the village, and as far as for what we could do is to support them on any grants or subsidies, whatever would be available to help out. But our main reason is to make the system foolproof, that it cannot and will not ever be dumped in the lake again. And that way I think we can work very well together in a number of ways. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Don.
I guess it's over me. Thank
Any
you.
questions?
Yep. A sad situation there for sure. From my perspective, there is absolute imperative that we work together with the Westport community to find a solution to this. The ministry has to be certainly a strong advisor as well as a control on this. It's an operation issue. I don't know exactly the details here, but certainly my background in community development and working on water treatment plants, the operating side of it is absolutely critical. And we need to be very, very supportive if Westport is going forward for funding to improve their mechanisms for control of this system. We can't be antagonistic, we have to be positive and supportive.
Well, as I said earlier, I'd like to see the creation of a common water board, lake quality, that involves the village of Westport and the two Rideau Lake associations most affected. And I think that is one way of bringing an information exchange at the technical level and making sure that that message gets out to the public. We also have to throw our weight of our just over 10,000 residents in support of the 600, 700 residents of the village of Westport. And I think we have to consider that the situation in Westport is a fantastic opportunity to make sure that the system is put in place that, if successful, can be used elsewhere in the township, as sooner or later the province will insist that we put in that type of system. And I think we have to put our full weight behind applications for grants, pressure the ministries involved and the Premier to support the village of Westport and ourselves. Thank you.
I also think that working together as a team with Westport to move forward, this has already happened, it's in the past, and now we have to work together because it involves all of us. I also think that putting a a board in place to bounce, troubleshoot things to see like what actually really happened to the sewer system, if it was malfunction or if it was a person problem. Get to the point, get to the bottom of it and find out what it is. Come together, try to find grants, work with the federal government, natural resources. Obviously, there's a runoff that falls into the lake from beaver ponds and stuff, and they contribute to nitrate problem too. Look at the whole picture and not just point fingers in one spot.
Directed at Don Cook. Some candidates have promised to speed up planning approvals in our township to encourage new development. If you are elected, will you support the existing policies on lot size, frontage, and setback that have been instituted to protect our lakes?
Well, that's kind of a two-part question. The first part about planning, speeding up planning approvals. Certainly I haven't promised that, so I don't know who has. As far as I'm concerned, the planning system has to have standards. There should be approvals. You should be able to report against those standards. And yes, you should always be looking to continually improve your processes. Speeding up against what standard is important. Second point here, if you're elected, do I support existing policies on lot size, etc.? If they make sense, I will support them. There should be a business case that puts first and foremost protection of the lake waters as the objective. And if those policies support that, then I have no reason why I wouldn't support it. I don't know the specific policies at this point.
As Don said, it's an interesting two-part question. I don't think speeding up planning approvals is a solution to anything, because there has to be a regulated process in place. And if everything comes in right away and it meets all the requirements, yes, it should be fast. If it doesn't, then a lot of teamwork has to happen between the township and the proponent to make sure that it does meet the requirements. On the other part, I am familiar with the existing policies, and I support most of them. There are a couple that I find very frustrating, and that's the lot size coverage, and a couple of others, again, procedural issues. And the negotiating process that I have found has frequently been adversarial. So I think the whole planning issue has to be reviewed, made less adversarial and more user-friendly.
Thank you, Bob. Debbie?
I'm not familiar with the setbacks and stuff, but my foremost thing is we should protect the water quality in the lake. And if these policies are put in place and if they work, we should be not wanting to be too close to the lake to contribute to the problem that we're trying to fix. We can't have it both ways. But knowing that, I'm for putting in changing policies. You can't do things really quick and think things done fast or can be make mistakes. It has to be really reviewed and looked at, and to the very best of us, that people will look at us and think, yes, they have everything. They have water quality. They have oh dear, they have everything that they want to come live here and build here.
Thank you, Wendy. Yes, as far as speeding up application approvals and what have you, we all know sometimes by speeding up means we made a decision too quickly. And a yes or no decision can be said very fast as far as if you're there and the applicant for an approval. So I see working with our applicants, continuing on the basis that we're doing in many ways, as our plans, like our official plan or zoning bylaw, it's approved by the province. We have to work with. We also have a review team that we have to work with. So it does take some time, but we have endeavored to make it as expeditious as possible. Thank you.
You want me to answer again?
No. And our final question for the ward candidates is directed at Bob Lavoie to begin. What do you see as the desirable relationship between lake associations and council, and how could their contribution to council decision-making be strengthened?
Well, I've already mentioned the idea of a joint water board, which would include the lake associations, but I'd like to take that a little further. I would like to see the lake associations attend, or membership attend, some of these council meetings when these items are on the agenda. I would like to see lake association members read the documents that we post on our website every Friday for the upcoming Monday meeting. And I would be happy to receive comments on those documents, ideas and suggestions. How should I vote? How could I be your voice? And as we know, I can't please everybody, but I can't please anybody if I don't know what you want me to do. So participate, get involved, and I also think that council members should attend Lake Association meetings, not only the annual meetings, but I think the monthly meetings, and be kept fully in the loop about the concerns of the Lake Association so that we can bring them up either formally or informally to council and staff.
I see a desirable relationship by setting up a board, maybe it's already in place, to sound off concerns and to bring things forward. Like Bob said, concerns, if we don't know your concerns, we can't act upon them. I just disagree that communication is a very big thing, and if people don't know what you want, and that we listen to you, and not just that we really take into every suggestion that you have, that we listen to it and weigh it very carefully, and that it represents everybody as a whole, not just certain people.
Thank you, Debbie. Ron?
Thank you very much, Wendy. Yes, I see one of the most important things is open dialogue with your associations, with your residents. After all, a lot of these residents, they may be just cottage owners, but they're also a lot of residents that live there year-round. We want an open dialogue. We, as a township so far, have tried to maintain that through the websites, newsletters, what have you. And I know personally, I certainly go to all of our Lake Association meetings in our riding here, and I take it very seriously as to what the Lake Associations contribute to planning issues, just environmental issues in general, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Ron. Don?
Well, I believe in a decision-making process that engages people and involves consultation. One of the biggest challenges is how do you consult? And when you've got an interest group like a lake association, you've got a go-to group immediately. You need to, as a council, then demonstrate that you actually are dialoguing with them. You've got to be able to be open to their suggestions. You've got to work that into your decision-making. And when you've made your decision, you need to be able to feed back to them what the decision was and why. When I was in the federal government, I was the first president of the Executive Association. The government thought it was going to be a union. In fact, what it was a knowledge source. Lake associations can be a knowledge source. They can offer back very, very specific knowledge when we're dealing with water quality of lakes.
Well, thank you very much, all ward candidates, for that. Now you get a little rest. I'm going to call on the mayoral candidates to give their opening remarks, and the first name that we drew out of the hat for that was Ron Holman, so I'll ask you to begin.
Well, Well, thank you very much, Wendy, and thank you for coming out to everyone that's present today. It's a real encouragement to see this much interest in our township, in our beautiful township. I'm proud of our township. I'm proud of the physical assets in our township. I'm proud of the residents, and I'm certainly proud of the volunteers that we have within our township. We have a unique township, 30 lakes, 840 kilometers of waterfront. That's a lot of waterfront, and that's very important. When I look at the county, and as warden of the county, we have 3 different corridors in the county. We have the 401 corridor, we have the 416 corridor, which is a bedroom community to Ottawa, and we have our corridor, which is the Rideau Canal, our biggest asset we can possibly have, which is our economic development in the future. And I really sincerely feel strongly that we have to develop that, and I'm proud of the changes that the council has made, that the councils of the past have made. We kept the tax rates affordable at $352. If I go back to 2003, we're at $1,233, and you all know how your market values have increased. Our tax rate today is $927. So if the assessments went up, we lowered the tax rate. Waste site closure. We closed the Westport waste site. You know, we're talking about contamination into the water. We did that against the engineer's report. The engineer's report said, keep it open because you have hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of cubic yardage available to you to finish. Yet the numbers were starting to gradually increase as far as migration off the property. We had to stop, we closed that, even though there was a financial benefit to keeping it open. And that was to protect our water quality. I'm very proud of that decision. I'm proud of the door-to-door pickup. I'm proud of the road grants, the private road grants, the new fire communication digital system we just put in, and I'm proud of our infrastructure improvements, which includes the North Shore Road and hopefully many others in this area. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ron. Now, Donald will give his opening remarks.
It's good to see so many people here, and this is good for the township and its residents. Water quality. I find it strange, as far as I know, there's been no front meeting between the two Westport, this township and Westport, over their decision to dump into the lake. Can they do it again? I just read here that maybe they can. If they do, it's a shame. Taxes. I get people telling me that they're maxed out with their taxes, with the assessment on the lake. We have to keep it in common sense, keep it down. Cottage associations, you need to form one voice to come to council and address council on your concerns. That's imperative if you're going to have a voice on your council. You pay 45% of the taxes in this township. Finances. OPP costs are up 19% this year, and every year they're going to go up $259,000 more. That means $259,000 less you'll have to spend in other things this year. Payments from the provinces are undoubtedly going to go down. $1.3 million to pay your interest costs on the debt. Township staff, they must have direct communication from the council as to how they're to deal with the public. It must be more friendly, not as combative as it has been. It must result in an effective result for all. That addresses my main concerns, and we'll get to the rest later. Thank you.
Thank you, Donald. Rob?
Good morning, all. Rob Dunfield. I happen to be fortunate enough that I do live on Rideau Lake. And since the URLA has put this meeting together, I want to talk a little bit about the Westport sewage discharge. Jim Mahoney from the MOE said that trucking will not happen again. It is a policy to water body that means provincial regulations protect us from any discharge. No one has been accountable for this, and it's an issue. We can't dwell on what's happened in the past, but we can certainly deal with the future. We must have an open dialogue with Westport, MOE, nobody's mentioned this one, the RVCA, which we're one of our very important partners. We must all work towards a common goal to keep our water bodies clean now and the next generations. There's not one of us that sit up here and say we'd like to pollute the lake. We often get chastised for our official plan requirements of our 30-meter setback. These regulations are here to protect and keep our body water safe and clean. An RVCA report is due to be released in February 2015, with a vision that was put together by people in this room to protect and enhance the quality and health of our Rideau Lakes watershed. Tourism is one of our major economic drivers in this township. The township must ensure that our visitors and residents have clean, clear lakes, docking spaces for boaters, safe roads and trails. To do this, we must support our lake associations. We need to support our trail development for those who walk, snowmobile, ski, ride horseback, drive ATVs, and just enjoy being outside on the trails. All play an important part in rural tourism. Our volunteers are a tremendous asset to us. We can't even put a dollar on that. We have to help everybody equally. They pay the hydro for this, the volunteers pay the hydro for this hall, but they don't pay the hydro for the hall in South Crosby. So we have a problem there. We have to deal with that and be fair to all the volunteers who do so much work for the township. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Okay. Thank you. Those were the opening remarks, and now we're going to move on to some questions that have been prepared by the Debates Organizing Committee. Again, each mayoral candidate will have 1.5 minutes to answer, with 1 minute allocated to the other 2 candidates on the same question. So to rotate the beginning order, we're going to direct the first question at Donald Wills. Your question, Donald: to minimize negative impact of development on the lakes in the township, a number of policies and bylaws have been adopted, such as the 30-meter setback, minimal lot size, and frontage. Recently, there has been talk of reducing these and other requirements. Where do you stand on this issue?
Okay, some of you don't know, but I'm a construction contractor, which means I work on your lawns and your cottages and your houses. That being said, development, in my point of view, is not a development at no cost to the environment, with the reflection of the health of the lake. We must have a development with an effective result for all, as it will result in the rise of the assessment rate, which keeps your taxes down. I think a more balanced approach on the township side, what we could do to get this done. Do we end up with 100 feet of lawn in front that's fully fertilized so the nutrients run into the lake? I don't think that's a very good idea. Maybe it should be more natural. And once we get back 100 feet, then they have a good view of the lake, which they really appreciate. The septic tank is the main issue on this. Get the septic tank back and get it a fully approved, functioning piece of equipment. That's your main pollution problem on your lake. So I think it needs to be adjusted some to result in an effective result for all.
Thank you, Donald.
I fully support our 30-meter setback. I know it causes confusion sometimes for some people, and if you do have a smaller size lot, or you can't accommodate a lot, we do have a program that you can go and get a variance. We hear them every 2 weeks in the planning committee, and we always try to work with everybody to deal with their own personal lot or the issues they have with septic or setback or floor space index. We can work with people on that, and it's not a big deal. But the whole thing is that for our future generations and for our generation, that we have that 30-meter setback that is supported by the RBCA and by the Ministry of the Environment. Thank you.
Thank you. The 100-foot setback or 30-meter setback to me is absolutely critical. It's called the ribbon of life. Those recall when it was established, and it was made in the suggestions and with the support of the lake associations. We wanted to have that protection to keep the water from being contaminated. We've had a lot of criticism. We did quite a meeting at times why we can't be 50 feet away and so on. It's the protection. We only get one chance to protect our water lines. I fully support the existing bylaws, and I support the lot size and the frontage and so on. We can't zone a lot for the business. If you have a small lot, it's historically created, we have to deal with that. However, I do support our planning, I do support our specifications, and it's meant to protect the largest asset we have is our water. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. The next question, we'll begin with Rob Dunfield. During your campaign, you have expressed concern about the size of the township's debt and council's use of borrowing to pursue road improvements. How much debt can our township handle and why?
December 31st financial statements by Brett Burns, the accounting firm that looks after our township. On our website, it clearly states our debt was $8.2 million. This does not include the $1.3 million, which is a post-closure liability for our waste sites. This does not include the $2.4 million loan which council approved. We probably don't have the money in the bank, but it's all on paper. So that puts our debt at a little bit over $11 million. These figures do not include $500,000 for the Elvin Seniors Complex, $300,000 for Lower Beverly Lake Park, which borrowed for new services, which are being paid back from their revenues. I was one of the members on council who voted for borrowing the additional funds in 2014. I've listened to you and have learned that we do have a problem. I would agree to borrowing funds if we were in a grant position and a percentage of that was being paid by the feds or the province. Our debt to service ratio was too high. The main disadvantage of borrowing, our revenues are dedicated to debt repayment and are not available for other uses. A municipality with low debt payments has more flexibility to respond to unanticipated events. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr.
Well, let me go this way. If you have a doubt about our capacity and our debt level, let me assure you that give you all the confidence in the world, it's well within our control. Rob referred to the debt level percentages. I think we're at 76% or something like that. That's because we have a very fast payback. We could stretch that out over 20 years or 30 years and lower that down to 20% where you'd be paying any interest and no principal. We don't do that. We pay a very high level up front in order to keep it down. And all of our payments are covered by our grants, 2 grants, gas tax and the OMPF grant, which amounts to $1,635,000 per year. Our payments are $1,600,000. And that OMPF grant and our gas tax grant are meant for infrastructure. And that's what we're investing it in. Be comfortable. The numbers Rob gave, I don't agree with, or exactly I said the other night when I was asked at 6.7. I believe the number Rob gave is incorrect on the fact that it does include the waste site closure, and also there's 562 and 330 that are completely outside and are self-generated through Lower Beverly Lake Park and the seniors, which again are completely self-sufficient. So be comfortable.
You can argue back and forth of whether the debt is comfortable or uncomfortable. We're still stuck with a debt that I don't know what the balance is. You don't know what the balance is because we can't access it from the CEO of the township. He won't give it to us because of a bylaw that was passed by this council. You can't get it, Linda. I find that an affront to democracy that when somebody is running for council, that they can't get a balance sheet from the council to see what taxes aren't paid, what the debt is, and what liabilities we have to still to pay for. So how can I preach from a book that I don't have any information from? I find it very strange.
Thank you, Donald. Our final mayoral question is for Ron Holman. To date, neither Westport Council nor the Minister of the Environment has made a firm commitment to ensure zero discharge to the Upper Rideau Lake from the Westport sewage lagoons. What steps will you take to ensure this commitment is made, and what steps will you take should a further discharge occur?
Rideau Lakes obviously is very, very concerned about this situation and where it's going from here. We're anxiously awaiting the minister's report and the ministry's report on what the corrective action is, both short-term and long-term. I'm more concerned, equally concerned, and while we're dealing with the spill that occurred this year, I want to make sure that the size of the facility is adequate to hold the 1 in 100 here, which could be far exceed the capacities that overflowed this year. And that's what I'm looking for in that report. I'm anxiously awaiting it. I'm willing to work with Westport and whoever's involved to get the solution to this problem. It's water quality. And everything we've talked about today comes back to our biggest asset in Rideau Lake's water quality. So you have my confidence. If you look on our website, you'll see all the letters that we've had in correspondence with the ministry. The latest one went out within the last 7 days, and we're waiting, anxiously waiting a response to that, because the first response we got was just a wishy-washy response. I'm sure it was produced many years ago and it's just repeated. We want some facts and figures and actual numbers, and that's what we're looking for, and I'm anxiously looking forward to the report.
Thank you. Robert, Rob Dozier, please.
It's one of the few things that I agree with Ron Holman, but I'm going to take his response from now. We do have an opportunity for the learning process and the growth and the issues that involve Westport. They own about 3 kilometers of waterfront. We own about 840 kilometers of waterfront, and we should have and have to make a commitment to keep it clean, and we have to help them in whatever way through RVCA, MOE, our own planning department to make sure that the Westport Lagoon thing doesn't ever happen again. Thank you.
Thank you. Donald?
Okay, I said from the start, this administration that is in now to the 1st December and the new administration has to make it perfectly clear that no dumping of pollutants will be allowed by our township in our street, lakes and streams. To do so by another municipality or private business or landowner will be considered a criminal act. And I cannot believe that they'd have the audacity to dump into our lake again. I just can't fathom that. What steps will you take to ensure a commitment is made, and what steps will you further discharge doesn't occur? A meeting has to happen before the 1st of December with Westport Council to tell them that this cannot happen again and how upset we are. Plain and simple. Thank you.
Well, thanks to each of you gentlemen, and that concludes the first part of our debate today. Now we're going to move on to the quickfire portion. Thank you. Will you make changing road and laneway names to eliminate duplication a priority? Yes or no? Thank you. Do you support the continued hard surfacing of township roads? Yes or no? Thank you. Do you support holding those council and committee meetings where public have requested to appear in the evening? Yes or no? Thank you. Will you support the continuation of garbage pickup on private roads? Yes or no? Donald? You have to vote. I invite you to use your closing arguments to give us your thoughts. Thank you. Do you think that the mayor and councilor's current remuneration is adequate for the next 4 years? Do you believe it is important for your mayor to be active at the county and with the Association of Municipalities of Ontario? Do you believe the size of council should be reduced? Thank you. Should the township have a responsibility to communicate potential health concerns to its residents, such as the toxic blue-green algae on Upper Rideau last summer, yes or no? No, okay. And that concludes our quick fire response. Thank you all for Well, in the interest of true democratic debate, we are now moving to a town hall portion of the agenda to allow your questions and concerns to be considered by our candidates. I have some questions from the floor that have come in to me. It's not necessary to sign these, but this one is from Stan. Thank you, Stan. Stan the man. We on the North Shore Road have grave concerns about our water quality and Westport and MOE's insistence on reserving the right to dump lagoons again. What influence can you provide to ensure this never happens again? Now, this is not directed to anybody. If anybody wants to take a shot at this, I know we have touched on it already. Does anybody have anything to add that they have not already? You said, yeah. I think we kind of touched it. I didn't want to miss Dan's question. Again, in the same vein, our lakes are becoming filled with weeds and algae. A huge change in 10 years.
I don't think he got an answer to his question. He's okay?
No, the question specifically is what influence, and I don't think that was clearly addressed with an answer. I'm looking for specific leverage if possible, not we should direct our attention to do something, but what the heck are you going to do? What leverage can you put forward to make sure that this doesn't happen again? Huge concern.
Thank you, Stan, for clarifying that. Okay, I'll pass this to Bob and then Debbie.
I think what I'd like to do on this one is we have a mayor who's involved, and I know any future mayor will continue to be involved at the county level. And that brings to weight a whole other population, because they also share water issues. We also have lake associations across the province of Ontario, and if we have to mobilize larger groups of people to put pressure on the provincial government to take action, not to wait, not to respond bureaucratically. And I think the first step on that is the Joint Water Board that would monitor and could report to the two councils. And if necessary, if there's no reaction, then you report to the ministry and you go directly to the minister's office. And if higher, if necessary. Now, the details of all these, I think, would have to be worked out. You have to have a specific example. But in general, it's political pressure, it's people pressure, and it's us all working together. Thank you.
Thank you. Could you pass it to Debbie, please?
I would stand in front of the water coming out of the lagoon to stop it from going to the Rideau Lake. I don't fucking fill it up. But anyways, it absolutely can happen. As it was said, that other businesses and other people can't let their septic systems run into the lake, so why should that? But coming back to that, we have to stand with Westport. We have to stand with the Rideau Lakes in like dam breakage where beaver effluent also comes down with the lake and contributes. There's a lot of stuff that contributes to it, not just the lagoon, but the lagoon this year is a very big problem that has contributed. We have to look at what is the workings of the lagoon, where it failed, and then work from there and help them come alongside with, as I said, grants and stuff, or whatever we can do as a group, because it affects everybody. It affects the wildlife, it affects our very drinking water. So as a group that we come together and help Westport with their problem with that.
As I stated earlier, I'm waiting for this report to find out what the technical issues are. And it's very hard to address what the solution is until we know what the actual recommendations of the ministry are going to be and the engineering firms involved. Fortunately, and I don't want to get too involved with this aspect of it, but I can assure you that I brought this issue up and roll my name over where I sit in regards to when we have the opportunity to talk to ministers, that we're not satisfied with this existing situation. And I believe me, we're going to have to think outside the box, both Westport and Rideau Lakes, to come to a solution to this that's satisfactory to both municipalities. What that is, I can't tell you at this point in time, but I can assure you as mayor, I'll be willing to work outside the box to make a solution work.
Thank you, Marilyn. Don Cook is next, please.
I just take a two-prong approach. The first one is we've already talked about a positive dialogue, finding ways to support so that it never happens again. But the second one, I would be looking at legal means so that it couldn't happen again, such as an injunction. I don't know how that works, but that is an option.
Thank you. Now, Robin, please.
Certainly when you were at your Upper Rideau Lakes Association meeting this summer, you heard Steve Clark, our member of Parliament, say that he would look after the problem for us and to keep an open dialogue and have all of us get in touch with him and get in touch with the Westport, get in touch with Rideau Lakes Township and let them know they had a problem with it. We're hearing the problem right here tonight by the 100 or so people that are sitting here, and that your voice will be heard to get this thing straightened out. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Donald? Absolutely.
Okay. I'm not going to wait for a report if I'm going to represent you on council. Get up to Westport and tell them front to front, don't do this again. We can't accept this, we won't accept this, and if you do, we're going to make sure you're going to be in court. Get the message out to them. Nobody's done that yet. Thanks.
So everybody's had their say on that question. Thank you, Stan, and thank you, John, for bringing, getting those answers out. This question is directed at Don Cook. Why did you vote no on the septic system on the septic system question for reinspection?
Well, you know, you can't vote maybe, and I'm not convinced that mandatory inspection is going to be ultimately the solution. Do you have a standard, and I talked about this in one of my questions that I had to respond to. If you have a standard, you measure to that standard. Mandatory inspection, the word mandatory, what is the consequence of that? What is the follow-up? What is the enforcement? And who's paying for the mandatory inspection? There is a lifespan for a septic system. It is technically there. It's installed properly, inspected by our inspectors, and it should have a certain lifespan. When that lifespan is over, it should be removed. When you sell your property, usually a condition would be have a septic inspection. And that's why I decided it's not mandatory. It works into the life cycle and into the market forces. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, this next question is directed at our three mayoralty candidates. Can you briefly explain the difference between good debt and bad debt for municipalities?
Thank you very much. The good debt is where you're not borrowing, first of all, for operating. Partly operating. It's got to be for infrastructure improvement. How many people can go in today and buy a house and pay cash for it? Very few, especially the younger generation. And that's exactly what we're doing. And the financing I indicated to you before is paid for by the grants we get. It's not affecting your tax rate. And those grants, as you know, the federal budget just came and guaranteed us the gas tax now for the next 10 years at an inflated rate every year. And here's 5 points that's important. Must be used for infrastructure. And every dollar we invest must have an operational saving. And if I go back to our budget, for our public works budget back in the year 2003, we've increased it less than 2.5% per year compounded over the years. That's a low number when you take the price of fuel alone is escalated, what that escalation is being. Must be at low interest rates, must be a quick payback, and we must take advantage of the 33-cent dollars. Right now, the Bill Canada Fund is offering 66-cent dollars, 33 from province, 33 federal. If you put up 33 cents, I'd be if I went to you and say, here's $1, if you give me 33 cents, I don't think there'd be too many of you who wouldn't do it. That's the type of investment that's making our township a better place to live and providing better infrastructure for you.
Thank you. Don?
Okay. I think we can do that within our own budgets to match the 1/3 to the 2/3. I think it's good fiscal conservative management. We can't get that debt up any higher. We have to pay it down. We're paying 1.3 million interest charges already. I lost my train of thought. We have to build up the reserves in the township. We have hardly any reserves if we have any, because I don't have the information available to me again. Reserves are a must for emergencies. So that's what I have to say.
I believe that most debt is bad debt. We don't really have to have it. If we had that $1.5 million to put into our infrastructure, we wouldn't have a problem. The mayor's alluded to in the past that if we don't have debt, we can't get into these grants. Well, we wouldn't need the grant if we didn't have debt, and that's coming from the province. And would you like to be in the same mess the province is in right now? They can't afford to do anything, and they can print money and we're not allowed to. Thank you.
Point of order.
Yes,
Did non-Morgan candidate answer that question?
it was directed at mayoral candidates. Bucky, would the audience like to hear Mr. Yes. By all means. What's your
A good debt and bad debt, actually what you're really talking about is managed debt. And when you have a $1.3 million interest charge, that's an opportunity cost. The key thing is, on your operating budget, you must make sure that you balance it. And I would be the first one to take a 33-cent dollar and turn it into a buck any day. In my work in community development, we always were seeking grant money to build infrastructure. But it's about the opportunity cost. And once your interest charges are such that you no longer can deliver the services on your annual operating budget, and you're suffering from debt repayment that you cannot afford, you're now into totally uncontrolled situation. So it's all about managed debt. We each and every one, we do it when we borrow for a car or a house, and we do this because you haven't got the cash flow to deal with the bigger items.
Bob Wong, please?
The old one. They have to do a point of order.
Well, I did a point of order, but it was a silent point of order. I just want to clarify something. On our township website, all of our budgets are there. And looking at those budgets last night, our actual debt repayment is $1.267 million this year, and the interest charge is just under $300,000. So we're not talking about 1.6 million interest charge. The other thing is like Don said, managed debt is good if it's 33-cent dollars, if it's for a project that you have to do. We have to be careful that we don't try and meet all our wants before we meet our needs. And the other thing is, short repayment terms, low interest rates are great, but we should also be paying down that principal. You know, you can't do a $2.4 million borrowing when you're paying only $1.3 million on principal and $300,000 on interest. You have to keep that borrowing below your repayment amount so that you've always got something. And that gives you flexibility to borrow in case of a crisis or other events like that.
Thank you. I have
Just further to that subject too, you have to think of when we're borrowing for you to drive on a road today, that if we were to save that money through reserves, we would have to deal with inflation each year on that money, on the cost of building that road, and we also would have to put gravel and dust control on that road that now does not need it because it has a hard surface. You also have to think, for anyone that is lucky to have that road in front of them, would you like to part with it and go back to the gravel road? I don't think there'd be too many put their hand up there. However, the offsetting cost pays more than pays, I feel, the interest. So it's managed borrowing, it's locked in interest rates, and it's expedient payback. I feel that the offsetting cost would more than take care of it. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. Now, I have 3 more questions here which are similar and may have already been answered on roads, but in the interest of getting everybody's questions on the floor, I'm going to read them. And if you have anything more to add, kindly put up your hands. This is to both councillors and mayors. Do you support completing the hard servicing of North Shore Road, and if so, by when? This one, if the township does not continue to access road grants through debt, how will it fund operations and capital improvements? And the third is to Rob. Many use the North Shore Road to travel around the lake. You both know to hard surfacing roads. Will you support finishing the North Shore Road when it's half complete?
I didn't have to answer when on that, so that's cool. Well, I guess one of the problems with the tar and chip, we've dealt with that, and these roads seem to break up before their time is due. We haven't even paid off the balance of the road that we borrowed the money for, and they're doing it again. And I don't know if it's the right way to be doing hard surfacing. They're breaking up prematurely. We're redoing them before we've even paid the loan off that we borrowed to do the money. So is that the right thing? Ditching has to be done properly. We have the proper drainage. What's wrong with a good old gravel road? You know, we did move to a rural community. And every time we tar and chip a road, you know what the first question is? Would you please change the speed limit on the road? Everybody's driving too fast. It happens every time we do it. Gravel roads do keep things going a little bit slower, and if they're maintained correctly, they're not that bad. Okay? Thank you. And the North Shore guys, we'll get it done sooner or later.
I can bring a little bit of past to this question. I remember driving on the corduroy road, and I remember getting the tractor to get out Westport down our Hutchings Road because we were like right to the axle. That doesn't happen anymore. I can remember like within the last 6 years when I drove a school bus on Clear Lake Road that I got stuck with a 72 passenger bus. That doesn't happen anymore. No. Anyways, it's wear and tear in your car. It's insurance is higher because of breakage. And I have experience with road construction. I have heavy equipment operator's license. I've always worked in heavy equipment. I've built roads. I've done weeping beds. Roads have to have a perfect surface, and if the surface at the down the foundation is correct with the right aggregate, it will stay. It will not blow apart. So if you look at the construction of it and not try to do it kind of, I was going to say half-assed. Do it right the first time, you don't have to do it again. And it saves everybody money.
I drive a brand new car and I live on a private road that is gravel, and it looks like a 10-year-old car. Yes, I would like to see North Shore Road finished this year. The estimated cost to finish it would be just under $200,000. And I believe strongly that any road that is started should be finished We can't stop something in the middle of it. And yes, at Tuesday's meeting, there's a proposal to reduce the speed limit on North Shore Road and a couple of other roads. And the thing is this is how we have to manage that debt. Maybe chip and tar isn't the way to go. Maybe something better is the way to go. We don't know that yet. We have to keep doing those analyses year after year after year. Prices go up, prices go down. But the thing is yes, I think we have to continue on the roads, but we have to maybe slow down the pace at which we're doing it.
Council back some time decided that we should be working towards a program that gets 70% of our roads hard surface. And at that level, it offers you the greatest savings in your operational costs. If you knew what we were paying, if we had not hard surfaced any roads, right now we're at 52%. In 2002, we were at 18% hard surface. I'm proud of that number, but I want to get it to the 70%. If we don't have to buy graders, we don't have to buy calcium every year. And calcium, one time we were paying, this was back 5 or 6 years ago, we were paying $165,000 to $170,000. Add to that and the inflation up to today, it would be much higher than that. Now we're down to well less than $100,000 in calcium. So you have to add those savings into your operational costs, into your interest costs on your payments, because they're offsetting. And the numbers that we're given regarding the debt repayment is completely wrong. The actual budget is $291,000 for interest, and it's $1,315,000 on capital. Fast repayment. Getting our roads so that we do not, and some of our early roads, and I agree with Rob on this, we did not put enough into the base to get them correct. We are doing that now. Take a look at the Portland Road, the one from Houghton Bay Road through to Highway 50. Take a look at the Houghton Bay Road. There's a tar and chip road that's now had a microsurfacing put over by the county. Take a look at that road. That's a pretty good road, and that was a tar and chip road.
Thank you, Doctor.
Just on completing North Shore Road, I can't believe the plan actually doesn't have a target date to finish it. If you've started it, you should have laid out your plan to complete it, and you should have had the funding in place, borrowed or otherwise, to complete that. That said, I'm one that would want to reevaluate the hard surface policy. If indeed 70% is the trade-off between cost neutral, and we're at 52%, I would imagine since 2002, we should have been reevaluating that 70% target on an annual basis before we commit more funds for more hard surfacing.
Thank you. Donald, oh, sorry, Ron. I didn't see you coming back.
Just a quick addition to that also too is, our plans are to finish North Shore Road. Our plans are to finish Hartscrabble Road. They're both the longest roads in our municipality. We could not budget them in 1 year. We can't budget for next year. That's a new council term. We don't know what the new council will be doing. But our plans as a present council was to finish what we started. Thank you.
Thank you. Donald,
When I was on council in Bachelor Burgess from 90 to 93, we had the Miller Group come and present their tar and chip proposal to us. The question I asked the presenter was what was the cost per kilometer, not trying to find out his own business, but to get an estimate, and I wasn't given it. I think a study has to be done between hardtop pavement that you'll see out here on the county road versus tar and chip. In South Elmsley Ward, tar and chip was put down on a 25-foot depth of the best natural gravel you could find in this country. The next year, or the year after, it was ground up again and done again. Does this pay? Hutchings Road, how many times was it done, Debbie, before they got it right? 3 times? Twice? Twice. You call that cost effectiveness? I don't. So, and in the midst of this repaving plan, don't forget the people on the rural roads that live on the dirt roads. Our road hasn't been graded since the 19th of June, and I looked on the website this morning and they've updated it since I pitched at the last meeting. They did Bass Road in August, and they didn't come up and do ours. How come?
I think that when roads end up being resurfaced again, I think people aren't being listened to or it's not being paid attention where the bad spots originally were on the road, the parts that break up every year because of heat of frost and stuff. And I think if people would take in the knowledge of the people who live around the area, there can be washed stone instead of stuff that already has dirt in it put on, because I know it had dirt in it, it wasn't washed, and therefore it led to the breaking up of Hutchings Road the first time. So if you know, that all those things are taken into consideration of like the bad parts of different roads, it could be a little bit more care taken in those spots than in the rest of the road.
Thank you, candidates. We have a new question. It is painfully clear that the issue of Westport dumping is beyond council's authority. If waterfront residents commence a class action lawsuit, would you financially support such action? Who would like to answer this? Begin.
Could you repeat the question, please? Teresa, please repeat.
It is painfully clear that the issue of Westport dumping is beyond council's authority. If waterfront residents commence a class action lawsuit, would you financially support such action?
I could not support that at this point in time without knowing all the details of any possible legalities. Generally speaking, for us to be involved with a legal action would fall through our errors and omissions clause of our insurance policy, and I would not see it that categorizing in that way.
Anybody else?
Council can't sit here and whiffle waffle on legal law. There has to be some action taken. No meeting with Westport Council yet. When are we going to tell them it has to stop? You can't whiffle waffle all your way through life.
I don't know whether I'm whiffle waffling on this answer or not, Don. Certainly I don't believe you could take them to court until you actually found out that they have not fixed the problem. I know they're working at it, I know their new council will work at it, because I'm sure it's on the top of their agenda with anything that's going to happen in Westport in the next 4 years. I certainly think that if they can't get anything done by this winter, they'll have an alternative method of disposing of the waste in their lagoons. It will not run down into the lake again. So we might be a little bit premature on the legal issue, and it's an opportunity to let Westport know how important this is, because a few of their candidates happen to be in the meeting group here today. Thank you.
Yes, we're going to give it to Don in just a second, but I just, perhaps now that you've been outed, we have a mayoral candidate here. And you may speak to Robin Jones after the meeting.
Again, back to the specific question that was asked, would we, as a township, financially support a class action? I don't know the details of what we have authority to do, but I doubt very much if a township can spend money for a private class action. It is taxpayers' money, and I'm sure there are laws around that. So the short answer to that would be no, I couldn't financially support that.
Okay,
Once again, a short addition to that too. I don't see us supporting a class action lawsuit against our neighbor. We all have made mistakes in private life. They've acknowledged they've made a mistake by letting it go. And I think move forward. Let's see what we can do to solve the problem. A lawsuit will cost people money. In other words, it goes down and trickles down to the taxpayers of a small village that maybe at some point cannot stand on their own 2 feet anymore. We're all going to be in the same township if that was to ever happen. We'd sooner work with them and let them be their village. I would not support a lawsuit.
Are we allowed to borrow to support the lawsuit? No, I would not financially support a lawsuit against our neighbors and our friends. You know, Westport, even though we're part of Rideau Lakes, Westport is our hub. It's our important area. However, the creation of that joint water board would provide a lot of information that would be open and public information accessible to everybody. And if any group took the time to sit down and read those minutes, those documents, who knows what they could use it for?
How about against the Ontario government? They're responsible. Sorry, Gary.
Thank you. Are you up for, I've got some cards here which have yes and no's on it. Do you want to do that again? Okay. I like this one. Would you support a township-wide beaver management program? Thank you. Do you support
Can we just clarify that question further? Are you talking on private property or on township property? Well,
everywhere?
so you're saying you're asking whether we would go on private property and control beavers?
The waterway is not private property.
Well, newly created ones.
That's probably,
Newly
that's
created
it.
ones are.
Okay, do you support transparency wherever possible? That's pretty simple. Will you borrow any more money that is not matched with grants? Yes or no?
Hold that again?
Would you borrow any more money that is not matched with grants? Yes or no?
Payable by grants?
No, matched with grants. Leveraged. $33 dollars. That is not matched with $33 dollars. That was a hard one. Okay, yeah. Are you in favor of at least 2 town hall meetings per year to better inform taxpayers? Yes or no? They're all yes, so there's no explanations needed. Are you in favor of establishing a standard offer policy to give local contractors a better chance to provide services rather than hiring contractors outside of Rideau Lakes who do not pay taxes in Rideau Lakes? That's actually against the
So let's give us a chance to even bid.
That's first. Okay, we're going back to questions from the floor. And I think here's one on solid waste. Why must we pay for taking brush to the Portland landfill after our first free load? This is a wonderful compost, mulch, etc. It can potentially be sold back to the public. So why do we have to pay after our first load? Who would like to go?
That's not a yes one.
No, that's, oh, we're down to 1 minute actually.
We've looked at having a mulcher there, and I think that that's what we need, and certainly we do that. I'm not in favor of us charging for the brush. I think when you start getting into bringing in tree stumps and things like that, that's a different story. But getting a mulcher there that's a large enough size one that can handle it efficiency, I'm not so sure on the selling of it because it mold accretes. If you stockpile it too long, you get mold and one thing and another, but certainly there's other options available.
A few years gone by, at the Portland Waste site, we had a mulching program as such, and into that went a whole bunch of pressure treated wood. All of a sudden, all the mulch became worth nothing. So that was one of the reasons we stopped that. But certainly when you talk about the waste site, and I can't get onto this, we presently should have extra people at the waste site to handle brush, handle disposable bottles. Right now we ship disposable water containers and plastic bottles that are air. We're shipping air to the dump facility all the time. It just costs extra money. There should be somebody there compacting it as it comes in. There's little things like that we can do to save some money with shipping, and that's our most expensive cost in our waste sites right now, is getting rid of the stuff after, because we are just a transfer station, we're not a dump. Thank you.
Thank you. New question. What steps would council take to provide vessel pump outs so vessels traveling on the Rideau don't dump their holding tanks into the lakes? There are no pump outs between Portland and JP's Logs.
First of all, it's against the law for anybody to dump from their waste holding on their ship or boat or yacht or whatever into the Rideau. That should be enforced by the ministry who should be checking the boats at the lock stations when they go through, which they had done in the past. Then they ran out of money and they didn't do it. If you remember, they used to get a little sticker on the side window of their boat that their septic system was approved and contained within the boat. They haven't done that in years. That's an opportunity. This is a private enterprise thing. If there's a buck to be made, to be doing pump outs, a guy should be doing it within the Rideau, because you can't get it done in two places in Portland right now.
Okay, I was down at, working for Ed Brickman's cottage there this spring, and we were out sitting on the dock, and he says, you know, I had to stop my wife from swimming in the lake yesterday. There was raw sewage and other unmentionables going down the side of the shoreline. So this is from undoubtedly yachts. So Pat McManus championed this in the 1960s, and we thought we had it solved, and now Rob tells me they did away with the checking. When they first come into the Rideau system, there should be a tag put on them, a seal on the dumping lid. And if it's open when they leave, they're in trouble.
I think a lot of these issues, again, it's coming back to down. The level for responsibility is at one level of government, and gradually the pressure is being put on down to the municipality for irrigating up into the tax bill. And, you know, Parks Canada must take a bigger responsibility in this particular issue. They have to. Colonel White is a great paper many years ago, and we have the responsibility, and the ministry has a responsibility to make sure that it's maintained 100%, and that means for pollution as well.
Again, potentially to any candidate who'd like to take this one on. When the official plan is reviewed, would you support provisions that require permanent trailers in campgrounds to adhere to the same planning regulations as other waterfront properties? Any clarification needed? A lot of very small trailers are being replaced with very large trailers and subsequent additions of porches and screen rooms and decks and so on, and they're very, very close to the water because they're grandfathered under the little mini. They don't seem to be covered by any regulation now, and a lot of cottagers who are being held to very strict setback standards see that as being unfair. These are seasonal trailers.
Obviously, I don't think you should have two standards. If it's fair, if one segment is required to do something, then the other segment should be required as well. Very hard to monitor because we had so many grandfathered situations in the past, but the standard should be the same for both.
And this is a very touchy subject. Also, We did, as a council, about 3 years ago on a big Rideau, we did a very large site plan with one of the campgrounds that are there. And just this past weekend, and in that site plan, the trailers would have been moved back 30 meters from the water edge. This past weekend, I had a report that said somebody was moving a trailer in on the weekend, and it was closer than 30 meters of water. On Monday morning, our building department went out and asked them to move the trailer back and get it within the regulations. They are there, and there are rules against parking trailers close to water. All you have to do is let us know where they are. We don't go out and look for problems unless the community lets us know the problem is there. And don't be scared to phone the office and say, this guy's trailer is only 10 feet away. Can we do something about that? And he doesn't have a holding tank. Can you do something about that? That's what we're there for. But we don't go out and look for the problems. Thank you.
I hope I understand the question right, but I don't think it's fair that a small seasonal trailer gets replaced by a permanent trailer. You'd have to take into consideration that the smaller septic usage of the smaller trailer would accommodate for a bigger one. So I think that it should come under the same laws and setbacks and stuff that, because it is becoming permanent, and then it's not fair to people who've already been there. And then that takes into consideration about the septic systems, whether they're going to be working or they, and maybe they're holding tanks, but I've worked on holding tanks and stuff in the past that they just smashed a hole in the side of it and just let it go into the lake. So it has to be regulated.
Just further into that too, with trailers and that, it's much the same as with a cottage. We have probably 80% of our development is legal non-conforming development, which meant it was built from years ago up to the Planning Act or changes to the Planning Act. However, if you have a cottage and it's getting tired and you'd like something different, as long as you keep the same footprint, you can still put it back in the same place. It's when you add to it that the changes start to come into play. I really feel with trailers, it should be the same. If they're going to change the size, then no double standard here. You must comply and move back as far as possible, and hopefully it will be the minimum 30 meters. Thank you.
Thank you. Don?
I mean, a trailer is a movable asset. As far as I'm concerned, it's not quite the same as an old cottage that was there with a footprint. If the existing trailer's there, maybe it's grandfathered. If you're going to upgrade, you follow the normal setback. It's as simple as that in my mind.
I think just about everything's been said, but the thing is that people are upgrading their trailers. Not a lot of them are movable anymore, other than a weekend campground. And I think anything that's permanent, like the park models and everything else, that are frequently replacing what were smaller trailers, have to follow the rules. And I think we need your support to let us know when these things are happening.
This is a comment on Ron's part. If you tear down an old cottage and you use the same footprint, can you build the same thing again? Has Ron told the staff that, or the mayor? Because in actual fact, we run for a year and a half on that. I know one cottager ran for a year and a half, back and forth with the township as to what he could and couldn't do and all the other stuff. It's not communicated with that staff member of what should be happening.
Okay, new question. In the spring, I took my tractor and wagon with an 80-year-old man and myself. We gathered garbage in the deep drains. We did not get paid, although it was done to make Rideau Lakes beautiful. Why does our council get paid $50 to attend funerals and weddings? I didn't write these, Jen.
The council did redo their remuneration bylaw this year, and out of that, I think the responsibility for the $50 for weddings or funerals was taken out of that, which is an embarrassment to me as a councillor that anybody would have ever claimed for something like that. I would like to redo the remuneration bylaw again if I get elected, because I still don't think it's open and fair to everybody that does it. One councillor makes twice as much as the other councillor. There's something wrong with the program, and it's not fair to everyone, and I will guarantee you that we'll relook at that. We do get a small remuneration, it works out to about $2 an hour, so, you know, take it the way it is, but we have to have fairness and openness. It will be on a website, if I'm mayor, how much money everybody's making. Thank you.
Of course, it is on the website already as well, and that's required by the province to post it. It's quite simple. We should go to one rate for a councillor, one rate for the mayor, flat, no subcharges. And that'll be my position as we go forward. There has to be a new bylaw put in place. Well, the $50 was really meant to be paid a small base, and if you don't work, because I've seen too many councils in the past and across, not in our township, but across the board that I sit on, where members are getting paid through the remuneration but not attending meetings, and that bugs me. So I think there should be an accountability, there should be a flat rate, and then an accountability at the end of the year to tell you how many people, what percentage of meetings did you attend that you're obligated to attend.
I just want to address this garbage issue province-wide. It's just pitiful. I think the new mayor should take to AMO or Roma to raise the fines for polluting our province. People just use it as a dump, and it's pitiful. Volunteer groups go out and clean it up. A week later, Our Lady down the road, she cleans County Road 5. 2 days later, it's polluted again. People just use it as a garbage dump, and it's got to stop.
Okay, this question is directed to one candidate, Rob Dunfield. Your spouse is a senior manager at the township. If elected mayor, do you see this presenting a conflict of interest?
That's entirely true. I'm very proud of what she does at the township. I certainly will declare a conflict of interest at any time there's pecuniary interest that's involved with anything that has to do with my wife, and I will be the first one to walk out of a meeting. While I was on council, I did get direction from the CEO every time there was an issue about my wife working in the township, and I had declared conflict when it was necessary. Thank you.
Okay, again, just shortly, we've talked a lot about debt. What would you propose to do to stimulate revenue generation?
Certainly not raise taxes. I talked to you about the Build Canada Fund, I talked to you about the funding that's coming from the province. These are new questions. Our efforts at AMO and Roma have been to put the pressure on the federal and provincial government to get us long-term predictable funding. The federal and provincial government get 91 cents of every tax dollar that's paid, whether it be HST or what it is. We get 9 cents. It was 7 a couple of years ago, it's now 9 cents. It's too small a portion. And with the provincial government, a $133 billion budget, and they're running $10 billion deficit, and then we have the federal government that now is coming into a surplus situation. We're demanding at AMO and Roma that we get some long-term predictable funding that we can look forward to relieve you of your costs of the operations.
Certainly, that we're pretty close to the user fee system right now, almost everything we do, and it should stay that way. And we have to make sure that we take Westport's waste, that we're getting paid full for Westport's waste. They're using our dump and our facility to do that. We have other little opportunities. We have hundreds of miles of unopened road allowances, and this one kind of irritates me. You know, our official plan says if they leak the water, we will not sell them. We have constituents out there whose property happens to be built on the road allowance through no fault of their own in the age. They come to council and ask to be able to buy that so they get clear title to the road, to their home, and we've denied them. I think that's an opportunity for income, because we could just get it appraised, here's what it is, because some of the property will be worth a fortune. If they want to get clear title, we'll give it to them, and we'll sell them the property. Good revenue generator there, I bet you could pick up $1 million in a year. Thanks.
Okay, anybody else wants to answer that?
What was the question again?
The question was revenue generation. Talked a lot about that. What would you propose to do to stimulate revenue generation? Don would like to.
Revenue generation. You build your assessment up. We got a better, we're being blackballed in this township by local contractors that charge a premium for working in this township to deal with our planning department. And don't say it isn't true, Ron, because I'm being told that every day. The rigmarole that's going on has to stop, and you get development with regard to the environment. You're going to raise your assessment, and you don't have to raise your taxes.
Thank you, Don. And this last question, I think it's all we've got time for before closing remarks. So the last question is directed to everyone. And we'll start with Don Cook and move up to Ron Holman. What do you see as the most significant challenge for the township over the next 4 years?
My sense is that the township aging population is a big challenge. I don't know if I'd make it the number one, but people want to live here. Myself, I came here because it's a very attractive place to live. And I think independent living and putting supports in place for the people that are getting older is a key challenge. And that can't be done just by the township, but it has to be done in partnership with a number of service providers. That's probably the number one, and pretty close to that, I would say we need to be working on all the environmental issues so that we keep the development in a sustainable way for future generations.
What I would consider as significant challenges is on a similar situation is our aging population. We're at a very high level in percentage of this is a retirement community. So we do need numerous things to help keep the people comfortable in our area. We also, as a priority, is our road system. Our industry here is tourism, and in order to have tourism, you need good roads for them to get here. I will always work towards the roads as well as a priority. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ron. Debbie?
I agree with the aging population thing, but I also think that we should be looking more towards our youth because they are our future. What can we do to make them stay here and work in our community? What can we offer them that they wouldn't get anywhere else? We have to come to some, everybody, have open communication with everybody. I think the township has a communication problem where it's a void between the council and the public to work towards having it more fluent in that the public can be more involved and find out things that they need to find out.
Thank you.
As somebody who's aging daily, I have to support the idea that possibly the biggest challenge is the aging of our population. But it's also a two-sided issue. Look around the room. You know, the reflections off the lights are blinding. The white hair, you know, we should be selling bottles of hair dye. But the thing is where are the youth? How do we get the youth of this community to come in here and tell us what they want to see in 15, 20 years so that we can be the enablers of that, while at the same time providing important services to our seniors? We need not only social housing, we need commercial retirement homes for people that can afford them, and there's a lot of them around here. And that would also provide local employment, hopefully to keep the youth around. We also have to provide transportation services. There's a couple of groups in the area that are busting their butts to meet the needs of our seniors and others. And we have to help.
I wonder if I'm the only one sitting up here isn't collecting the Canada pension plan. But, oh, sorry, Ron. I don't have the file yet. Certainly within the next 4 years, I think one of the priorities has to be that our building department and planning department gets in touch with the people. We have more complaints about people putting up a building, more complaints about we are not allowed to do this in the planning department. We have to have an open line and a simple communication with them. That department is run on revenue neutral possibility. It's a law, but we have to get that communication for those to let everybody know we are open for business and we would like you to build here and live here and have the rest of your life here. Thank you.
This aging population isn't just contained to our area. The chairman of the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus is fully aware of it all over Eastern Ontario, because our youth are leaving us for jobs in other areas. One of his comments was it can bankrupt a township with carrying overload. So I think we have to look at all possibilities, private and within the township. Sewer and water. Portland is in an iffy stage right now with the pollution in their wells. How is the township going to address this for the infrastructure needed to do that, and with all the other villages with the stuff that's going in the septic tanks? Tourism is based totally on the quality of the water in these lakes. Why would anybody come up to visit a swamp polluted with sewage? Keep it the way it was years ago, where it was good. Thanks.
I think Donnie lives in a different township than I do. I just will say this, we have a number of issues facing us, not the least of which is the county OP. I haven't heard that mentioned here today. As you know, we were mandated at the county to have a county-wide official plan by March of next year. And that's going to be the OP that covers all 10 municipalities in the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville. So every lower tier OP has to match into that. Let me tell you folks, that's probably going to be one of the most important documents that come before you in public meetings in the very soon future. Be aware of it. We have to deal with our bridges. We have deteriorating bridges all across Ontario. Our aging population is already being discussed. We'll be over 50% over 65 within 5 years, so we have to deal with this here. I'm proud of the seniors buildings we built. The list goes on, meeting accessibility requirements by legislation. We need a new salt dome up in North Crosby, we need one in South Elmsley. Those are practical issues that we have to address very, very shortly. The list goes on. I'm sure I could go on for another hour. But those are things that we must address, and this is what we have the responsibility for.
Thank you, Ron. Well, that's all the time we have for questions from the floor. I want to call on each of the ward candidates now in reverse order from opening to give a 1-minute closing statement. So first up is Don Cook.
First of all, thank you, Wendy, for running a wonderful session, first one I've ever been to. And I can tell you that a number of good things have obviously happened in the township over a number of years.
And it's a very desirable place to work and live. Certainly I found that since coming here, and as soon as I came here, I got involved as a volunteer on a number of committees, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. But from my perspective, it's not so much all the things that happen, but one of the big things that needs to happen in this part of the country is you have to pay attention to the process. And the process, such as we've examined this morning, where the people who pay, I guess if I'm elected, my salary, but also, you're paying a bundle of money for a bundle of services. And it is disrespectful if we don't have a process that we constantly engage you and consult on issues that are pertinent to all of us. So I thank you for the time. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I look forward to meeting you in the future.
Again, I want to thank Erla and the volunteers for bringing us together this morning. What a beautiful morning. What a beautiful weekend. It's Thanksgiving weekend. Aren't we thankful that we have a democratic process to be able to work this way? It's something that's a gift from our forefathers that we're still able to do. As you know, I've enjoyed it. I want to say one thing. These are your candidates for the upcoming 4 years for the North Crosby Ward, as well as our mayor at large. Please vote and think of your council for the next 4 years. And I would appreciate your support. Pending I have gained your trust, I will continue to serve you with a full commitment as I consider myself a team player, as well as to get the task at hand looked after in a positive way. Thank you.
I want to thank everybody being my first candidate meeting. You guys were awesome. You didn't bite me or anything. I don't feel quite scared. For people who don't know me, I really stand for truth and transparency. I don't like two-facedness, that, like what you see is what you get. A hard-working person deserves their money. You work hard for it, it should work for you, and you pay people like they're in our place with your taxes to get a fair deal, fair shake. I just appreciate that. If you vote for me, I'll do the very best I can, that's all I can promise.
I'd like to thank everybody here, especially the hard-working volunteers. I could call them threats, executioners, everything else, but I won't. My family and I have been coming here. We've had property here since the mid-1980s. And my entire work career was focused around getting here, finally. And we finally pulled that move off back in 2004. Since then, I've been involved with community groups, volunteering, a whole range of support activities for the people, and on some provincial groups. I've also had 4 years experience on council, and that's been a real eye-opener. And I am open, as you know, those of you that have contacted me. I'm transparent. What you see is what you get. And I really would like to have the opportunity to serve you again. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're going to move on to the American. Go ahead, Rob.
Thank you. And thank you all for coming tonight. I guess 6 key keys for the next 4 years. Tourism. It's one of our easiest growth development things we have. Public docks. Let's have them available so when people are here, they have a place to go. Places to put their boats in the water. We have to make sure we maintain that, and that's all having nice water for them to come to. Open and transparent. Everything that happens at council, you will be able to read on a website, unless it's in camera. And that is one of the issues right now. Too many things are hidden in the township from the constituents. Road maintenance. We need a new road maintenance program. The gravel roads for those people who are unfortunate enough to live on one, okay, we'll get that fixed. A service review will be done, and we have to make it affordable while this goes on. Thank you for your support, and you'll have an honest, strong leader if you vote for me as mayor, and I will listen to you and work on your behalf to make it a great place to stay and live forever. Thank you.
Okay. Ethics. We just can't skate around issues. All these candidates should have had a full list of where the township stands so they could address them instead of we're out fishing for it. Accountability. Again, what are we going to do if Portland needs new sewer and water? How are we going to address that funding-wise? The planning department, gotta change it from a can't-do-it township to a can-do-it township to get our assessment up to keep your taxes low. And have a sign out at the gate of the township office, thank you for your business. The docks in Newboro, just to be quick, a rift was sent out, and out of the rift they picked one contractor. I'm saying, once they figured out what kind of a dock they're going to put in, maybe they should have put out a contract and got a competitive price, instead of the contractor knowing what they had to spend, and that's what he put in the price for. It's your money that's being wasted in these transactions. I promise to listen to your concerns and seek out your responsible solutions. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for the organizers and for everybody that's coming. I'm proud of our township. I'm proud of our township, the way it's progressed over the last years since amalgamation. I think of the North Crosby Hall. If we hadn't financed, that hall wouldn't be there, and I can proudly say that it's paid for now. So, and to say that our debts, are not, council, all of our documents are all published on their website. They're packaged in our agendas. There's the status of our loans. It's been out there. Every councilor's had that for months. The gravel road plan, there's a gravel road plan that's in existence. I look forward, I'm proud of our township, I'm proud of our seniors, I'm proud of our youth, and I'm proud of everybody in between. I look forward with your support to continuing the progress of this township, get to the 70% so that you have a good road to ride on, and also that our debt level is under control in all ways, and that we meet the most expensive roads as we did last year. As mayor, I put forward a proposal at budget time that basically reduced our loans by $1,315,000, and 9 out of 10 councillors voted it down.
Is there any chance my road would be greater than
Okay. Thank you all. Thank you to the audience for your kind attention. A special thank you to all the candidates who stepped up to the plate to offer yourselves